set the things rolling, guys. So what we are going to do, we are going to have initial a small presentation from Shubda. She's going to talk about diabetes, myths about diabetes, and then she's going to talk about various eating myths which we were just discussing among ourselves. That sugar क्या है, fructose क्या है, carbohydrates क्या है, कैसे होता है, weight reduce कैसे होता है, and then if you have some question anywhere, there are two things we can do. One is you can write that question in the chat box, and Salil is going to moderate this because I have something very important at 11:30, so I have to move out for that. So Salil will then moderate the entire session, and he will be able to ask those questions on your behalf. Sometimes what happens, similar questions are there. Salil will be mix those questions and ask to Shubda so that we are able to, and you can call her Shubda. No need to call her Miss Shubda. That's what she says. Call me Shubda. So that's why I'm calling her Shubda. And I think that's it. Salil, anything from your side?
I think it's perfect. So we all look for a very interactive session, because after the initial presentation, the more questions we asked, the more the session will be beneficial for all of us. So I really invite everyone to be very open in the question and interaction.
Absolutely. And we are recording this session so that people who are not able to join later on, they can see. We have created a YMCA mob learners group, what you call it, kind of YouTube channel, and we are sharing links with you. We have already done parenting. We have already done leadership in difficult times. Today we are talking. Next session is going to be on networking, which is business networking and personal networking, how it impacts our life. Paritosh Pathak would be there. Okay, I think Shubda is ready. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, how are you all?
We have, good, fine, thank you. So stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah.
So good morning to all of you, and thank you, Seem, for calling me here for this presentation. And I think post-COVID, we all need, we all want to know what to eat, what not to eat, because we're still expecting maybe the third wave hits us, and between we want to build our immunity, we want to make sure our sugars are in control, our blood pressure is in control. And we're all very curious that even if it hits us, it should not impact us as badly as it did during the second wave. Nutrition suddenly has become very important, and we nutritionists suddenly have got into the limelight, and everybody wants us on the stage to talk about food and all, because suddenly we've all understood that if our body was healthy and if we were disease-free, and especially the non-communicable diseases, then maybe COVID would not have impacted us so badly as it did, because if we did not have pre-existing conditions like blood pressure, diabetes, and heart diseases, then many of us would not have been impacted so badly. So today we will be talking about eating healthy, because that is the crux of staying healthy. So I welcome all of you on this Saturday morning, and let's start with the presentation. So yes, we're going to start with some humor, because what is happening is that most of us are very attracted to fad diets these days, and there are many fad diets which are popular these days, whether it is polio, whether it is Atkins, whether it is, am I audible?
Yeah.
Whether it is the keto diet, these days the keto light is there, then there is intermittent fasting. These are very nice to listen to, and people do not want the normal boring diets because they want that fancy name attached to the diet. Unless they do not have that, they don't feel they are doing something different, because normal is so boring. But the fact is that before a fad diet, yes, you are slightly obese, and after a fad diet, because you're doing it like a diet, you become thin and slim, because all these fad diets actually work on calorie restriction. But believe you me, when you lose weight, you lose muscle, fat, and water in different proportions, depending upon the kind of diet you are doing. But after you leave a particular regime, whether it is any kind of diet, because you're doing a diet, you're doing it for a short term, when you gain back most fat. That is why you're changing your body composition, and that is very, very bad, because initially maybe you were of a certain weight, but more muscle and less fat at that particular weight. But once you gain weight, at the same weight, you are more fat, which then leads to different diseases, which has less to do with what is running in your family, which has less to do whether you have a family history of diabetes or heart diseases. Now it is more to do with what weight you are and what physical activity you're doing and what is your lifestyle, whether you're drinking too much, whether you're smoking too much. So all these lifestyles matter most. So I would request all of you to, when you go to a dietitian or a diabetes educator, please understand the science behind the diet she's prescribing to you or he's prescribing to you. So we presently in India are actually at a stage wherein we are bursting with diabetes, and most of the people who have diabetes or pre-diabetes, we really do not know also because we are not diagnosed. So during COVID time, suddenly we were hit by the fact that when many of us were diagnosed with COVID, when got ourselves checked for COVID and got admitted or went to a doctor, we were also diagnosed with diabetes. So that was a warning for us that anybody who's 30 plus and may or may not have a family history, but has a stressful life, is not physically active, is slightly overweight, should get tested every year for diabetes, because it's a silent disease and it's a complex disease. Now in this slide, I'm just going to explain in very, very simple terms or simple way what diabetes is. So basically, whatever food we are eating, whether it is carbs, whether it is proteins, whether it is fats. So normally we have this notion that sugar is converting into sugar. No. So whatever we are eating, whether it is carbohydrates, proteins, fats, everything that gets converted into glucose or sugar, as we commonly say it, right? So once the sugar is in the bloodstream, our body produces insulin, which is directly proportional to the sugar that is coming from the food. So more the sugar from the food or more the glucose from the food, more the insulin required, right? Which is good because we think insulin, we need insulin because if we don't have insulin, we have diabetes. Perfect. But insulin function, what is the function of insulin? The function of insulin is to remove this glucose from the blood and supply it to the cells of our body where it can be used as energy. Now till here, it is all good. So food breaks down into glucose and then glucose is absorbed in the blood, and from the blood, it reaches our cells. So insulin is the key for the cell. Okay, so it opens the doors of the cells and then glucose can enter the cells. Now problem arises that in diabetes, either this insulin doesn't work. So there is insulin, but the key is not fitting. So this insulin is not working, or there is deficiency of this insulin. So the key is not there, or the key is not working well, or it's a combination of both, which means the glucose, instead of entering the cells and be utilized as energy, is actually roaming around in the blood. And that is called type 2 diabetes or even type 1 diabetes, wherein there is no insulin. So diabetes is a state of hyperglycemia, which means high sugars in which the insulin is not working, or insulin is deficient, or it's a combination of both, right? So we normally have many types of diabetes, but largely if we see, we have type 2 and type 1. Now type 2 is the 90-95% of diabetes that we see in our population, which is the diabetes wherein you see that people are also being treated with oral drugs, people are also treating with insulin, but it is a diabetes which we normally know as a lifestyle diabetes, right? Type 1 diabetes is a diabetes which we normally see in small children, but can be seen in elders also, but basically no known cause. It's an autoimmune disorder where there is no insulin. And now we're also seeing a rise in type 1 diabetes. Basically, we don't know, but the body starts acting against our own pancreas and destroys the cells which produce insulin, and hence no insulin in the body. So anyone who knows a person with type 1, as a society, we should just educate people that if one has a type 1 diabetes, nobody should educate them that some pill or some churan or some babaji will cure type 1 diabetes. No, no insulin in the body means we have to take insulin in type 1 forever throughout life till we find a different way of treating type 1 diabetes. In type 2 diabetes, mostly the crux problem is insulin resistance, okay? And insulin deficiency sometimes, but some amount of insulin is always there. Now we have also seen that we have different types of type 2 diabetes. So we have patients sometimes who are on insulin, sometimes on different drugs. So physicians choose what kind of a drug you are given for type 2 diabetes on the way you are, which depends whether you are a lean or a thin type 2 diabetes, which would mean that you have less insulin in your body, or you're a very obese type 2 diabetes, which would mean that you have insulin in the body, but your body is not working well. Or maybe you have a combination of these two. You have less insulin and it is not working well. Or you have just diabetes because it is age related, okay, which is a very mild form of diabetes. So we have different types of type 2 diabetes also, basis of which your doctor will try and suggest you types of drugs which you would need. So it's not like that one size fits all in type 2 diabetes also. So something that is working for your friend or for your neighbor may not work for you. So in COVID-19, we saw that people were trying to copy prescriptions for COVID-19. And many a times people also try to take the drug that is working for the other person in type 2 diabetes. Okay, I'll also take it because they feel it's so common to have diabetes. But remember, you are different, you are unique, and what is working for somebody else may not work for you. That is true even for a diet. That is true even for a diabetes drug. That is even true for exercise. Okay, because you are unique. So let's bust some myths before we go on to more things, what we should eat, what we should not eat. Because in India, everybody wants to advise and everybody wants to help. It's in the best of the interest of people, but believe you me, because of this, we as educators and doctors and physicians really struggle because the myths become so strong that sometimes treatment becomes a problem. Okay. So the first myth that if I don't have a family history, or if I'm not of a particular age, I will not get diabetes. So we are seeing, right now, somebody from Asim's office called me and told me that, Shubha, why don't you log in right now? So I was taking an emergency call right now wherein a 13-year-old boy has type 2 diabetes, and he just had a huge meal of carbs, which is bread and poha and a glass of juice, and had fainted. So his parents were unable to understand what happened because he had a lot of food. So I was explaining them that, this is type 2 diabetes, and we would understand that sometimes the sugars will go up because of you've had so much food. But what their son has experienced is reactive hypoglycemia, which means too much carb. Because he's so small and he's overweight, his body produced a lot of insulin, because of which he went into low sugars. So these days, because of the sedentary lifestyle, because of so much of screen time, no longer do we think that we have to have a family history. Each and every one of us is prone to have type 2 diabetes because we are Indians, we are Asians, and we are prone to have diabetes because we are the thin fat Indians. We have more fat tissue in our body. And we are seeing diabetes in the younger age, even below 30, even below 20, type 2 diabetes now hitting the younger age group because of bad food habits, because of lack of physical activity, because of increased stress, increased screen time, all these reasons. So actually what happens here is that whenever we eat something which is refined, whether it is sugar, whether it is maida, whether it is packaged food, something which is converting into glucose very fast, like I just explained, the pancreas makes insulin. Now this insulin will put the glucose into the cells, but at the same point of time, because of weight, the cells resist insulin. which means if I'm not able to push this table inside, I need more hands. So say suppose this is glucose and I'm trying to push this and I am insulin. I'm not able to push this because I don't have the strength enough. I will call for help. Similarly, when there is more glucose and the body is producing insulin and insulin is not working well, the pancreas will keep producing insulin to push that glucose into the cells. Now, this more insulin stores more fat. That is why I said that yes, insulin is good hormone because we all think insulin is required, but excess of insulin is bad because excess of insulin causes weight gain. So whenever you are eating a food which gives you a spike of glucose, your body is producing a lot of insulin. And at that point, you are gaining fat. So what happens inside the body? You consider 3 cells here. One is a cell which requires glucose immediately. One is liver cell, which stores glucose for future use. And one is your fat cell. Now you have eaten food, there is glucose coming in and there is insulin being produced. Now this glucose, whatever is required for the cell to work, it has taken it. What it doesn't need will be stored in the liver for future use. But whatever is excess will be stored in the fat cell. So whatever is excess will each time be stored in the fat cell and you will keep increasing the fat cells. So the insulin that is used for the current cell, which you're using as energy, is your current account. Liver is saving and fat is FD. So because we are eating so much refined food and maida and sugars, we are continuously increasing the FDs. And FD furthers will increase the requirement of insulin. So more fat, more insulin resistance, more insulin, more fat. So it's a vicious cycle. So you eat refined sugars, you make more insulin, your cell resists insulin because you have weight or family history, or you're not physically active, or environmental issues. Then your pancreas produces more insulin, your insulin stores sugars as fat, and there is inflammation. And believe me, fat is just not a sitting organ. It's a working organ like muscle and all. So that creates inflammation. It creates more sugar cravings. And then you end up with all the obesity related diseases, which is high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, heart diseases, osteoarthritis, sleep apnea. And then again, all these cause a lot of issues. And you are also prone to then have more serious outcomes if we are hit by a pandemic or if we are hit by any infectious diseases. Now, these are 2 people here. We have been hearing a lot about body mass index, which means your weight upon your height in meters square. That tells you whether you're obese or you're not obese, or you're overweight or you're correct weight. You can see that they both have the same mass index, but can you see the difference in the body fat? Right? So this is the issue with Indians, that even with the same weight and height, the percentage distribution of body fat is different, which causes the insulin resistance in the body. So the more fat we have on the abdominal area, which is called the visceral fat, the more insulin resistance we have. So we are the lean fat Indians. We will be lean all over, but we'll have that paunch around our abdomen, and especially the male population. Okay, so we have these apple-shaped bodies. If you can see this body, it's an apple-shaped body here. Okay,
just
an apple-shaped body. Yeah.
One clarification here, Shubhda. So we normally, whenever we go there, everybody talks about body mass index, and the machines are there, test is there. Now, and we believe in that. But you are saying more important is the body fat percentage.
Yes.
So is there a test for that also?
Yes. We have a body composition analysis machine, which just passes a small current through your body, and your fat, your muscle, and water shows a different impedance towards it. And then you get an analysis of how much water, how much fat, how much muscle you have. Not only that, it also tells you where it is situated.
Okay.
So if you have more visceral fat, you have more fat on the arms, or you have more fat on the thighs, everything. It even tells you your BMR, basal metabolic rate. And that's how I work. So while you're losing weight, we keep checking the body composition. That is the only scientific way these days. So we definitely do the body mass index for our patients, but we also do the waist to hip ratio. We do the body composition. Only then we can come to a correct evaluation of a person. We only don't depend upon body mass index anymore. Is your
Thanks. Thanks.
Question answered?
Thank you, Shubhda.
Was that
Thank
a
you. No, thank you, Shubhda. It's answered.
Yeah. So the next myth is that medications for diabetes or even for blood pressure, I would say that, or even for the cholesterol medications, most of the patients just stop them. They see a good value, or they check their blood pressure, or they check their blood report for the cholesterol, and they just stop it because they feel it's okay now. Now, these are chronic diseases. Chronic diseases are different from viral diseases and fevers. When you don't feel anything and when you see that things are okay, you just can't stop it because you're okay because you're on the medications. Chronic diseases means they are going to stay with you and you have to manage them throughout your life. They are not curable diseases. They can be remission for a few years, which means I'm not saying you cannot reverse blood pressure. You can if you are overweight. Yes. So you can go into remission. You can also go into remission if you have diabetes and you're overweight. For that, you have to be sure that you have been diagnosed at a very early stage. You are overweight and you lose weight. You are of an appropriate age. You're not very old and you are complication free. So everybody cannot go into remission. So I cannot tell a person who's very lean, who's insulin deficient, that you will be, cured of diabetes. That is wrong. And many people are doing these days. They're giving false hopes to people with diabetes without understanding their type of diabetes, that we will reverse your diabetes. I've seen so many ads and advertisements, and people fall for it because they want to get rid of the medication. Remember, we are fighting the disease. We are not fighting medication. The goal is to have good sugars, good blood pressure. Cholesterol should be okay. The idea is just not to be off medication. I understand most of the people are very scared of the side effects of the medication, but have we thought what are the side effects of the fact that if our sugars are uncontrolled or our blood pressure is high? Because these are things which are more dangerous. So we always have to understand the pros and cons of the things that we are doing, right? So yes, diabetes can be reversed or we can go into remission for a few years, but you have to first understand, go to a doctor and understand your type of diabetes. Are you the candidate for remission? And if you are, please go work for it. Can your blood pressure go into remission? Please go work for it, right? We are the first people who would work on your lifestyle for remission. But if you're not a candidate, please do not fight and leave your medications and then end up into a soup. So remember, diabetes is a progressive disease. What medications are working now may not even work after 5 years. Your capacity to produce insulin may decrease. With age, it may worsen. So you are not a failure at all if after 10 years your medications are increased, even though if you're following a perfect plan for diabetes. It is a progressive disease. Okay? Now the biggest myth. So this is a very paradoxical situation here. You read very controversial views here. Somebody or some celebrity dietitian will say, oh, eat as much fruits and number of mangoes and you will cure your diabetes. Some doctor would be checking sugars. Can somebody mute? I think somebody is not on mute. I can hear ambulance. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So, and somebody would be checking fructose on a glucometer and telling you that, okay, fructose can actually cure diabetes or it doesn't affect your blood sugar levels. Now, both these things are not true. People with diabetes can have fruits, but it is not a free food. By free food, I mean you cannot go berserk having fruits. Fruits are very healthy, but ultimately they are carbohydrates. And there is a carbohydrate count for a day for people with diabetes, even for people without diabetes. Our body doesn't have an alarm system. which means that, okay, I have had banana, let's keep the sugar up. I have had papaya, let's keep the sugar low. No, it's about quantity of food. Some amount of papaya will raise your sugar, and some amount of banana will also raise your sugar. Now we have to understand how much banana and how much papaya. If I eat 2 papayas, do we believe that our sugars will not go up? No, they will. So everything in moderation. Similarly, fruits in moderation to be eaten when you have diabetes. So what is moderation? So 2 to 3 portions of fruit can be consumed in the day. So when we say a portion of fruit is to be distributed in the day. Okay. Most important thing is that please take fruit as a snack, not as a dessert. Always take it in the mid-meal. Whichever fruit can be taken with the seed, take it with the seed. Whichever fruit can be taken with the peel, take it with the peel. Fruits will always help you. They are high in vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, which are very, very important for people with diabetes, pre-diabetes, non-diabetic. So fruits are good, but we cannot go berserk with fruits. Okay. So now this is one term: diet-friendly, sugar-free, low cholesterol, trans fat-free. All these, the free thing, you know, it's flooded the market, and we really get fooled by this. Remember, sugar-free, cholesterol-free, or whatever free doesn't mean calorie-free. It doesn't mean that it will not increase your sugars or it will not harm your health. On the contrary, sometimes what happens is that because we see it's a diet food, or advertised as diet food, or advertised as sugar-free, or advertised as cholesterol-free, we tend to eat it more than we would eat the regular sweet. So please check the calories, the high fiber, the low fat, the sugar-free foods. Sometimes will have the same amount of calories and will actually really harm your body the same way the normal food would. I personally believe that it is better to occasionally satisfy your taste with things that you really like and not feel guilty about, instead of binging on foods which say sugar-free, diabetes-friendly, and then keep wondering what's happening with me, because they are an add-on to your calorie content of the day. Okay, so please be label educated, which means learn how to read labels.
So this means, Shubda, that we are saying
there is no diabetic diet. So which means I'm going out of, yeah.
So are you saying that it is not only sugar?
Hello?
Shubda, are you saying that it is not only sugar, rather it is the, oh, I think she dropped out.
I think she got disconnected.
Shubda, you're mute.
I lost you. Were you saying something?
I was saying, Shubda, are you saying that it is not only about sugar or sugar-free diet or other things, but as we understood that it's the overall intake of carbohydrates which will result into high sugars also? So that's why
overall intake of calories.
Yeah. So it is the basically calorie intake which is there, because we can't say if I don't have diabetes, I can take more calories, or if I have diabetes, I can just reduce sugar but keep the same calories. So the overall calorie has to be maintained.
So there are 2-3 things. One is overall calorie. Second is calorie distribution and where the calories are coming from.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
I just
so distribution would include timings, distribution of carbohydrate, fat, fiber, protein, right? And that will also decide where the calories are coming from.
And just one, because before we started, we were having discussion, so I thought it'll be good for everybody. You know, we were talking about fruit, and in fruit we said, and many times what happens when people say they want to do detox, they say we'll only take fruit the whole day, right? Whereas I remember when you give detox diet, it is different. It is not fruit. It is no salt and other things. So it means now fruit itself alone cannot cannot be taken thinking that it is a low calorie food, or it has a fructose or something. It will not affect me. And if it is taken moderately, it's okay.
Yeah, see, everything has to be in moderation, right? Nutrition is the science of moderation. We have to understand that. Okay. So when we talk about carb counting, we say 1 apple is equivalent to 1 roti. Okay. Like in India, we think fruit khaya to kuch nahi khaya. But actually the grams of carbohydrate are equal in 1 apple and 1 roti.
और हम लोग तो 2 रोटी खाने के बाद डेजर्ट की तरह एक सेब और 2 सेब खा लेते हैं बाद में.
Exactly my point. So that's what I was trying to say, that please consider fruit as a mid snack. It's a full meal. So if you've taken a fruit and a glass of milk, you've actually taken a full meal, nutrition wise also, calorie wise also.
Okay. Thank you.
So, yeah.
So the presentation आपका चला गया.
I don't know why it is going again.
Yeah.
It's okay. You can see?
Yeah.
Okay. So then next myth is that people with diabetes need to follow a special diabetic diet. Now, here I might lose my money altogether. I might lose my consultation fees altogether, because I specifically work with people with obesity and diabetes and thyroid and PCOS. That's my forte. But actually, there is no diet for people with diabetes. It's a diet that I should follow. It's a diet which you should follow. It's a regular, normal diet, right? Because they just have to follow a healthy diet. So actually, there is no such diet. It is a healthy, balanced diet. And I will just show you a plate, which is now a healthy diet. So now the size of the plate has also been changed. So we used to have these huge plates. Now we've been told to eat in a 9-inch plate. Why is that? Because the visual effect of food is very, very important. So if our plate is full, we feel full. So we take a 9-inch plate, we'll eat less because portion control otherwise is difficult. We fill half of our plate with plenty of vegetables and fruits. Then 1/4 of a plate has to have lean protein. And most of it, I would recommend, should come from plant protein. Okay. And the other should come from whole grain foods, which is our carbs. Okay. Unfortunately, in India, 50 or more part of a plate is covered with carbs. So if I ever talk to a patient and I ask, what do you eat normally? So the reply mostly I get is 2 bread सुबह खाते हैं, 2 रोटी दोपहर में खाते हैं, 1-2 बिस्किट शाम में खाते हैं, 2 रोटी रात में खाते हैं. So बाकी चीजों का कोई importance ही नहीं है. There is no importance for the non-veg they are taking. There is no importance for the dal, the vegetable, the fruits they are taking. It's only the focus is carbs, roti, bread, biscuit. So we are a carb country and we have to change it. As a society, we have to change it. Yesterday only I was talking to a patient and she was struggling with the fact that the child eats a lot of chips. And both parents had diabetes. And I said, then whom do you get it for? If you have so much of complaint that the child is eating a lot of chips and is gaining weight, and you both have diabetes and heart issues, whom are you eating the chips for? That huge packets. He said, no, guests come. So I said, you don't want to have chips. Your child is not allowed, but you want to serve it to the guest. I said, why? So as a society, we have to change. We have to make healthier choices. We have to serve healthier choices. We have to change our concept of a party. We have to change the concept of our plates. We have to change the concept of food. You know, and recently this idea of becoming a vegan has become so popular that all animal products are bad. And I have nothing against veganism. And I'm so sorry if somebody is a vegan there, and I'm sure it's doing it for the environment. But you know, the thought of being vegan started with the fact that it is good for environment. But slowly and steadily over the years, we realized that even plant is also a living being, and that's a part of our environment. And even if you are harming a living being, which is a plant, now we've realized that they also feel pain. So according to me and according to many of my colleagues, we realize that whatever we do, if we do it according to our requirement only, say suppose even if we are having milk and we don't overdo it, we don't use it for making sweets and pleasure and festivities, even if we are having paneer, we have it only as much as we need. Even if you're having non-veg, only to feed us as much as needed. Similarly, vegetables, because they're also living beings, they feel pain, right? They can respond to music, they can respond to our feelings, and it's proven scientifically now. So we will not tend to overeat and we will not harm environment in any way, because we are omnivorous. We were made to eat everything. But if we eat only as per our need, our health will stay okay and environment will stay okay. So I'm not against anybody eating non-veg, or I'm not against veganism. I am just wanting to say that you should eat everything in moderation and not harming environment. Now, this is a very interesting slide, and this is related to a lot of patients who come and talk to me, because, a lot of patients call me for a diet for thyroid. And it is an increasing problem in our country, and especially it's seen in women. So they want to know what to eat for thyroid, wherein the way to manage thyroid is a pill every day in the morning, a thyroid pill, and there is no other way, because it's an autoimmune disorder and you have to take a supplement for the deficiency of the hormone. But they want to get rid of that pill and find a diet which can remove that pill, and somehow some exercise which can take them away from that pill. So they're fighting the medication away. And I have patients who are obese, who don't want to diet, who don't want to exercise, and they're looking for a pill for weight loss. So where their treatment is actually a pill, they want a diet. And where the treatment is weight loss, where the treatment is diet and exercise, they want a pill. So I don't understand this. When it is very clear that for thyroid, you need to have a pill every day in the morning and go according to your doctor. There is no connection of thyroid with any vegetable, whether it is cauliflower, whether it is cabbage, whether it is soya. All researches has told us that there is no relationship. If it is cooked and eaten in the right amount, you can eat everything. If you have thyroid, just maintain your weight, just exercise regularly. But don't miss your pill, and don't have anything for the 30 minutes after you're having your pill. And for weight loss, the thing that works is diet and exercise. Why are we looking for miracles here, when the answer is very, very straight? So let's get on to some eating guidelines. Now, this is a pyramid, which the base says that you have to exercise every day, you have to control your weight, and you have to do portion control. Now, portion control can be done in many ways, and all the diets that we are seeing these days, whether it is a gluten-free or a dairy-free, is working on calorie restriction by doing portion control. Exercising every day is very important, not only for weight loss, but to keep your whole body in good health. Weight maintenance, again, very, very important. Obesity is a mother of all diseases. Fruits and vegetables every day in the diet. Now, certain studies show that 10 servings of fruits and vegetables in the day actually keeps you away from heart diseases, keeps you away from diabetes. So something like a Mediterranean diet, which is based on nuts, fruits and vegetables, olives, olive oil, is very, very good. Whole pulses. We think rajma, chole, chana, bhari hai. It's bhari means it's difficult to digest, which means it is going to take longer to digest. So it will not create a glucose spike. So they are good. They are rich in protein, they are rich in iron. They will not cause glucose spikes. They have some vitamin B12. Please have it. They are rich in folate. So please have it. Have whole grains. do not stick to only the yellow dal because they are light. So for weight loss or for diabetes, foodstuffs which convert into glucose very quickly, like idli, like khichdi, like bread, like rusk, like biscuits are not good because they're converting into glucose very quickly. So anything which is getting digested very fast is actually causing the glucose spike. So we think कि हमने dinner नहीं किया, we didn't have roti and we had 2 pieces of bread. Now 2 pieces of bread is equivalent to 2 rotis. The difference is the 2 rotis will take longer to get digested and 2 slices of bread will quickly get digested. So you will get a glucose spike with 2 breads. So you will feel more hungry, your sugars will go up and you will gain weight with 2 pieces of bread instead of 2 rotis. But somehow our psychological framework has become such कि roti nahi khani. Anyways, so then we have fish, poultry and eggs, which is very, very good, very healthy unless you fry it. Once you've fried, all the nutritional benefits go. Okay, so 2 to 3 times in a week, please have fatty fish. And once or twice a week, have chicken, avoid red meat. So as we go up the pyramid, we see the upper part of the pyramid is the part which you have to eat minimal, which is red meat, butter, margarine. Margarine is a cholesterol-free butter that you're getting these days, refined grains like maida, sugary drinks, sweets, and salt. So there was a whole movement which we had run, aaj se thoda kam. Aaj se thoda kam kya? Namak, chini, or tel. So every day try and decrease these 3 things. So let's start the aaj se thoda kam amongst all of us and we decrease salt, sugar and fat intake. Okay. So what is the optimal mix for macronutrients? I hope all of you understand macronutrients. We have micro and macronutrients. Macronutrients are the nutrients which is protein, carbohydrates and fats. And micro are the vitamins, minerals and whatever. So actually there is no ideal percentage according to the American Diabetes Association, though ICMR has given a different percentage and RSSDI, these are the organizations who actually formulate the recommendations for people with diabetes and people for non-diabetes. But actually there is no fixed recommendation for how much protein or how much carbohydrate and how much fat you should have, right? It should actually be based very individually. And that is why we all dietitians say, please have an individualized diet plan made. Do not cut, copy, paste from somebody else's plan. Because again, you are unique. You have your own metabolic goals. You have your own blood reports. You will not take somebody else's medications, right? So why will you take somebody else's diet? You have your own preferences. You have your own cultural, choices, your own family eating habits. Why would you try and copy somebody else's diets? Especially everybody's height, weight, body structure, muscle weight, fat weight is different. The plan should be made according to that. So is the macronutrient need different in people with diabetes compared to the general population? So there may be many people here who are diabetic and who are non-diabetic. So is it different? So actually it is not. So anywhere from 45% to 65% calories can come from carbohydrate. And that depends upon your weight, your age, how much physical activity you are doing. Type of carbohydrate can also differ. The distribution of carbohydrate can also differ. For example, I can give if an athlete comes to me, even if he's a diabetic, I would like to give him a high carb snack before he goes for a run. And if a person who's overweight comes to me, even if he's not diabetic, I will give him a little restricted carbohydrate diet. Okay, so 36 to 40% from fat. And what fat? Healthy fat. I'm not talking desi ghee. I'm not talking malai, makhan. I'm talking nuts, seeds, olive oil, avocados. These are the healthy fats. And rest is coming from the lean protein. Okay, which is plant protein, maybe lean poultry, egg whites. Regardless of the macronutrient mix, total energy intake, as I was explaining to Asim before, should be appropriate to attain weight management goals, which is different for everybody, which is according to your bone mass, your muscle mass, your fat distribution. As I said, it should be very individualistic according to the metabolic goals, which means what is your sugar levels, what is your lipid levels, what is your physical activity every day, how is your food preferences, and what is the availability, right? So diet is very, very individualistic. Many people feel that if we have diabetes, we should go on a carb-free diet. And if you're doing weight loss, we should be on a carb-free diet. That's untrue, right? So all societies have recommended that people should not go on a carb-free diet. And they should, on the contrary, have carbohydrates from good sources like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes. Now, many of us actually don't even know what all foods have carbohydrates. Many of us will not know that milk actually is a good source of carbohydrate. Legumes, which is rajma, chola, chana, is a very good source of carbohydrate. Lentils, dals are a very good source of carbohydrate. We only think they have protein. No, they are a very good source of carbohydrate, right? So we have to have carbohydrates in a day, because they have also many other nutrients. If we remove these, we actually will be removing a lot of other nutrients from our diet. Fiber is a very important thing. Fiber will reduce your cholesterol levels. Fiber will improve your gut health, which has become very, very important. It will keep your colon very healthy, will prevent cancers. It will, keep your weight in check. So a lot of importance is given to fibers these days. And we have two types of fiber, which is soluble and insoluble. Soluble fiber you will get from fruits, vegetables. Isabogol is soluble fiber, and insoluble fiber, something like a wheat bran. And they both have different functions. The insoluble fiber will form bulk in your intestines and will help you evacuate your stool very well. If you have constipation, have insoluble fiber with a lot of water. If you have problems in cholesterol, weight, try having soluble fiber. Something like 2 teaspoons of isabogol before you're going to go out for a party or you're eating something heavy really, really helps. Even for sugar control, if you have a plate full of salad before your meal, you will see a dip in your postprandial, because that will make like a gel in your stomach, and the availability of glucose from your food will go down. So isabogol and a salad, and especially the sequencing of food. So normally people will come and tell me that I had a salad with my meal. So that is fiber. What I'm trying to say, have it before, because sequencing of food matters when we are having fiber. So have the fiber before the meal along with some protein, and then have the carb meal. Automatically your post meal spike of sugar will go down. Even will help you in weight loss. Okay. So protein. Now, protein is a very, very, issue which is talked these days, because everybody is wanting to eat protein either to build muscle or to lose weight. So even children these days are wanting to have protein supplements. So as for diabetes is concerned, even for weight loss, I'm just trying to talk about both the things here. So protein has a very small effect on blood sugar levels. Okay, it even tends to stabilize blood sugars by blunting the absorption of carbohydrates, because protein takes a very long time and gradually it is absorbed, and it has slower breakdown time. So with sugar, say with a carbohydrate, you will get a spike like this. With protein, you will get a spike like this, but it will go on for a very long time. But if you have huge amount of protein at one meal, then there will be effect of blood in the blood sugar levels. Ultimately, protein can also be converted into fat, because protein will also be converted into glucose. So please understand that it's not like that if you're only eating protein, you cannot gain weight. You can, okay? And most of the animal protein also has a lot of animal fat. So person who's having high protein foods from animal has to be very careful about the fat. So have lean protein from animals, which is fish, lean poultry like chicken and turkey, and then plant proteins are better, like beans, lima, kidney beans, lentils, nuts and seeds have good protein, soya bean, tofu. Now, many times we are seeing that high protein diets are being given to weight loss, and people don't eat carbs for months. Now, remember, this type of a weight loss is a very short term. The minute you will start eating carbs, your weight will come back. And many of them, because the choices are very limited, start eating red meat also, along with high fat, especially in the keto kind of a diet. That will ultimately harm the kidneys and the heart. So long-term studies for keto is also not there. So do not try any of these diets on your own. If you're wanting to lose weight on a high protein diet, please get yourself first evaluated by a doctor with your blood test, and then go to a qualified dietitian, not somebody who has just undergone a weight loss with a particular diet and has become a celebrity on a social media. No. Check the qualifications of the dietitian, go to a qualified dietitian, and then do your protein, whether it is a keto diet or whether it is a keto light these days, which has low fat and high protein and moderate high fiber carb. So make sure you're taking your diets from a very qualified person, otherwise you end up with issues, real issues. So dietary fat, I've been talking about fat. We have healthy fats and we have unhealthy fats. So primary goal is to eat less saturated fat. And how do we understand what is saturated fat? Anything which is solid at room temperature is saturated fat. Desi ghee, coconut oil, malai, makhan. So whatever is solid at room temperature is saturated fat and is obtained from an animal. Only the vegetarian saturated fat is in the coconut oil. Okay. So as you can see in the slide, foods that contain cholesterol will normally be from the animal because cholesterol is made in our liver. The cholesterol myth that was on recently was that that yolks increase cholesterol. Yolks do not increase cholesterol. And we can have as much fat as we can. It will not affect our serum cholesterol. So these were the two myths floating in the market. The first thing, that yolks do not increase cholesterol, is clear. It does not increase cholesterol. But remember, yolk has saturated fat. So anybody who's trying to lose weight, please make sure you do not have more than 2 to 3 yolks in a week, because yolk has calories and has saturated fat. And people with diabetes, the recommendation is not to go beyond 2 to 3 yolks in a week because they have a problem with the management of cholesterol in the body. So anybody who does not have a problem with the management of cholesterol, the body is working fine, can do 1 yolk every day. But people with diabetes, not more than 2 to 3 yolks in a day, and people who are wanting to lose weight, less yolks, please, because there's more calorie and more saturated fat. The second thing, the second was that you can eat as much butter and as much fat and your cholesterol will not go up. That is a myth. Because all these foods also have saturated fat. Yes, dietary cholesterol will not lead to serum cholesterol, true, because your liver will identify it as a cholesterol and will automatically decrease the cholesterol production. But they all have saturated fat, which is proven to increase cholesterol. Secondly, they're high in fat as such. They are fat. So they will increase fat cells in the body, and that will increase inflammation and lead to heart issues. So please understand that dietary cholesterol will not increase cholesterol, but saturated fats will increase cholesterol. Cholesterol and saturated fats are two different things. Okay. So always, when you're reading a social media post which talks about some miraculous news, read it very carefully with the disclaimer and discuss it with your doctor before you start following something and you leave your medication. Many people just left their medications for cholesterol, statins, they left thinking that, okay, cholesterol is no problem anymore. Oh, this is one topic for interest for everybody, how much to drink. Now, some people say alcohol is good for health. All studies have shown that it is not the true thing. So anybody who still believes that, okay, once in a while wine is okay, once in a while, okay, I'm not telling you to stop, but it is not good for health. Okay. I know many of you wanting to revolt here, but okay, if you're drinking, it should be limited to 1 drink for a woman and 2 for men. And this is nothing against women here. It's just that they have the enzyme which is required to metabolize alcohol a little less than men. In people with diabetes, alcohol can cause both high sugars and low sugars. So you have to be very careful when you have alcohol who have diabetes. Okay. Alcohol gets metabolized in the liver. So if you're having alcohol and you've not eaten, your body will start metabolizing in the liver, the alcohol part. And if your sugar starts dropping because you've not eaten, the liver will not respond. Normally, when our sugar starts dropping, the liver starts producing the glucose it had stored into glucose and keeps elevating our blood sugar. But if you are diabetic and you have had alcohol and not eaten, and your sugar starts dropping because you've not eaten, the liver will just be busy with alcohol. It will say, I have had alcohol, I am merry, I am not producing glucose. So your sugar will keep dropping. And because you're under the influence of alcohol, you will not even feel the signs and symptoms of low sugar, which is hypoglycemia. So very dangerous. If you have diabetes and you're on insulin or on drugs, which can cause low sugars, please be very careful when you're having alcohol. Eat something with it. It's salads, paneers. Check your sugars. Hours after your meals, check it after 2 hours, and also check it like 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. because it will have a delayed hypoglycemic response. Okay. If you have eaten too much with alcohol, it may cause a high sugar. So with diabetes, you will have to be very careful when you have alcohol. The sulfonylurea, which are taken just before the meals, 20-30 minutes, and insulin itself. Okay. Sweeteners, a controversial subject again. Sugar-free le, nahi le, stevia le, nahi le, ki chini le le thodi si, ki gud le le, ki shahad le le. So first of all, I'll talk about the natural sweetener, which is the sugar, honey, and jaggery. For diabetes, all three are the same. ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं है कि sugar is bad and honey is okay and jaggery is okay. No. As far as sugar is concerned, all three will give you the same response in your blood sugar. Okay. That is why we do not allow all three in diabetes until unless your sugars are very well controlled and you're counting them in your carbohydrate. As far as sweeteners are concerned, as I said, everything in moderation is okay. Sugar is a known cancer-causing agent. Sugar is a known agent which causes weakness of heart muscle. We know sugar is a white poison, but we still think that it's okay to take little sugar than take sweetener. When all the studies which are done on sweeteners have proved that if taken in limited quantities, it is not harmful. So few sweeteners which have been allowed by the administration, by the Food and Drug Administration, are sucralose, okay, which is in Splenda, which actually is a derivative of sugar only. The structure has been changed in such a way that it is not absorbed in our body. So इनके ना daily allowances होते हैं. So don't go beyond that. So if you're taking 2-3 tablets or 1 or 2 sachets, it's absolutely safe. But please don't go drinking 2-3 cans of, each can will have 10 sachets. So please have it in moderation. Don't start having desserts with sweeteners. Once in a while, it's okay. But if consumed safely within the daily intake levels, which have been established by the FDA, which are very, very easily available on the net also, if you go to the FDA site, please, it's not harmful. Okay. So I've spoken so much about, food and myths, but still, I mean, I'm sure there's confusion to what to eat. Actually, it's very basic and there is no rocket science. Most important thing, eat plenty of fruits and vegetables. Now, when I say plenty of fruits and vegetables, I mean 2 to 3 servings of fruits and 5 to 6 servings of vegetables. And that's not, very difficult. Now here I have said limit 3 S's. Now can somebody tell me what is the 3 S's? Anyone? Please unmute yourself. Asim, is there a way or that people can unmute?
Yeah. Salil is
Yeah.
moderator. Yeah.
Everyone can unmute and speak. So
What is the 3 S's I'm trying to say here?
Salt, sugar, and one is
Excellent. Try the third S.
Maybe saturated fat.
Sir, मैं वो
Excellent. I think it's
Yes, sir.
excellent. Salt,
There are-
sugar, and saturated fat. Hats off to you. I think my day's work is done.
You
So-
can add one more, doctor. You can add one more sedentary life cycle.
Yeah,
lifestyle.
excellent, excellent. I think yes. So we can have 4 S's. So my mantra changes now to limit 4 S's, which is thank you for the feedback. It is salt, sugar, saturated fats, and sedentary lifestyle. Excellent. Then we have the next is eat mindfully. What is mindful eating? Mindful eating is to feel what you're eating, not to eat it in front of screen, not to eat during a meeting, to focus on what you're eating. Then automatically our portion control goes down. And this is very important. You know, eat with your family, have no distractions. And I think most of us have, had the feel of it during the lockdown. Then we used to sit with our family, chat and eat. Now, I have given you 2 examples of rainbow plate. It's a very easy way to include all the nutrition you can in a plate. Just have a colorful plate and you will not go wrong. The most important thing, please do not go on a diet. Make it a lifestyle. Make small decisions every day, but make it a lifestyle. Don't try and change your diet in a single day. कि आज से मैं बस diet पर हूँ, आज से I'm going to be a saint and that's it. No. Make small changes. For example, like today I have to make a small change, like I'll eat 1 plate of salad every day before my meal. That's it. Do it for a week, 10 days. Make it a habit. Now that becomes your lifestyle then. The next, try and say, okay, I'm going to have an early dinner. That's the second habit. Then it becomes your lifestyle. And keep at it. Because if you go on a diet, then you make sudden changes in your diet. And you try and leave a food group totally, like I've left the carbs completely, or I have left dinner completely, or I'm not going to do something. And then that's a short-term thing. And whenever you go back to your lifestyle, your weight is back. And I told you in the beginning only that this yo-yo dieting pattern is the most harmful thing one can do. Even if you lose 3 kilos or 4 kilos in 3 months, it should be permanent. Because even if you've lost 10 kilos in 3 months and you've got it all back, it's worse. So please make it a lifestyle, even if it is just 2 changes in your life. Okay. So you can write, all of you can just write whatever lifestyle change you would want to do, even if it is just, reducing alcohol, or even if it is just reducing smoking, or if it is just adding a plate of salad or having an early dinner. Just write 1 goal and do it for 10 days and you will see how much happiness it will get.
we have a question while we are talking about changes, Shubda here. We are talking about an average Indian platter of roti, sabzi and dal and salad. So the question here is from Vikram. He's asking, what should be a good balanced proportion and what are the changes you recommend?
See, I told you about the plates that we were talking about. So changes depend upon a person. So I am never going to tell you, okay, reduce your rotis. I'm never going to tell you, skip a meal. I'm just saying, make your own change according to your, decision, according to how you evaluate your meal is. Say for me, the most difficult meal, once I come back from my office, the most difficult meal is the evening meal. And I'm sure most office going people will agree that 6 to 7 o'clock time is the most difficult time. We tend to eat the wrong food at that time. So we can make decision at that time that, okay, for this meal, I'll keep a healthy snack ready every day so that I don't go wrong on this meal. That could be one decision. But if anybody is telling you that, okay, for lunch, you should not go beyond 2 rotis, it is wrong.
You can say kal se kam.
Huh? And the one kam mantra is already there.
Yeah, I remember for this Shubda evening craving when I reach home and the time between dinner and all. I remember you recommended me makhanas.
Okay. So makhanas is one choice. Then the kala chana chaat is one choice. Hummus with the vegetable sticks is one choice. Paneer is another choice. Egg whites is another. There's a lot of choices in the evening meals. But if anybody is telling you to restrict your main meals, that okay, restrict quantity there, that will never work.
I can even suggest what you were suggesting earlier is to change the time of dinner. So when it's evening, the 6 to 7 is a perfect dinner time, and then you can have a light supper after that. So
yeah, perfect. That is a very good. So I have also another mantra which we can all follow, which is called the ABCDE mantra, which we follow. A stands for A1C, HbA1c. I'm not sure whether you are familiar with this word, but HbA1c is a 3-month average for diabetic patients for their sugars. So manage your HbA1c below 7. And for people without diabetes, keep it below 5.7. So that is very important. So if you manage your HbA1c, then B is blood pressure. Keep your blood pressure in check for anybody who's 30 plus. HbA1c, blood pressure. C is cholesterol. A, B, C. So if your cholesterol is in check, blood pressure is in check, A1C is in check, most of the issues, whether it is kidney issues, whether it is heart issues, whether it's diabetes, is checked off. D is daily physical activity. Okay. So daily physical activity, as we were here, 30 minutes. Absolutely necessary. And E is eating healthy. Okay. So if we follow this ABCDE mantra, most of the issues of our life will be gone. And one of the doctors even adds a O because everything starts with 0. So he says A se pehle O, which is 0, which is overweight. Control your weight. So if we are doing this correctly, most of us who are pre-diabetic will become non-diabetic. So pre-diabetics and non-diabetic. And if we are non-diabetic, we'll prevent diabetes. And if we have diabetes, we will go into remission. Okay. So best results can be seen with combination in exercise. So we can do cardio, we can do yoga, we can do resistance training in a week, or we can do it as a combination in a single day, and we can get the best results. But please do not forget to do deep breathing exercises. I'm not saying do Kapalbhati, I'm just saying Anulom Vilom kijiye, deep breathing kariye, meditate kariye to bring down the stress levels. Your lifestyle affects your health, and I'm ready for all kinds of questions. Thank you for the patient hearing.
Thank you, Shubhda. So Salil, all to you. Questions which are there, which are in the chat box, you can ask on behalf of others. And I also encourage everybody to ask questions if you have something in your mind to break your myths.
First of all, I think thanks, Shubhda. It was an enlightening session. All the myths are busted, and many questions are coming to our mind as we speak now. And I already have 5 or 6 of them. So what I'll try to do is bundle them together in the themes we were talking about. And in the meantime, I think everyone can drop in more questions in the window chat. So first we go to the diet part or the food recommendations. And one question is that which plant-based food gives good proteins?
Soya protein is very good.
No, sorry, anything other than beans, I mean.
Anything other than beans, pea protein. And then we have broccoli, which is very good in protein. We have mushrooms, which is very good in protein.
Mushrooms, I don't eat. Sorry.
Lentils are good in protein.
And then I have another question as a follow-up on this. Are chia seeds good as fiber and protein?
So chia seeds are very good in fiber, and they are very good in omega-3 fatty acids. Okay. So yeah, good thing. But with chia seeds, you have to start slowly because, they can cause a little bit of bloating. So soak them, let them, swell up, and then don't have it together. Start with less amount and, consume it slowly throughout the day before meals.
And then there's one question from Vikram, switching over to one of the most common and favorite ingredients for Indians is desi ghee, right? So when it comes to desi ghee, I think every household talks about it, and there is a special recommendation from everyone on desi ghee. So when it comes to desi ghee, this question is whether the older way of having it over dal or sabzi is better, or after the meal is cooked, it's better to have it is over the say vegetable or dal. So which method is better for desi ghee?
See, whatever method you use, desi ghee is okay, but not more than 1 or 2 teaspoons per day. Because desi ghee, after all, is a saturated fat. And I know we have a lot of following of desi ghee and a lot of emotions attached there with desi ghee. And I completely agree, it has the best omega-3 to omega-6 ratio, but ultimately it's a saturated fat, and it should not be the only fat being used in the house. So a little bit of desi ghee is okay, but otherwise you should be using cold pressed oils, mustard oil, and olive oil or avocado oil or something like that. Yeah.
Can I add, Salil, just what I asked for?
Yes, please.
Yeah, see, Shubda, the question was also pertaining to, suppose you want to cook with a particular oil, a lot of things are said about that an oil should not be cooked to a very large, to very high temperature.
Smoking point.
Yeah, and smoking. Is that relevant? And, a lot of things that came out that a particular kind of oil is good. The other oils, as claimed, are not that much. The things that are advertised as good for fat, good for the heart and all.
Yeah.
And similarly for ghee, is it that we pour it after we cook it, or do we cook in ghee, which is less okay? Let's say which is less harmful, or in that sense.
So ghee ka smoking point hota hai kafi high. So it's okay whether you cook in it, the Indian cooking, but don't deep fry in it. Okay. Because that will absorb a lot of ghee. We are not advising deep frying in ghee. Smoking point is important. So for frying, use oils which have high smoking point. Okay. So something like a virgin olive oil is not the oil for frying. Okay. You can use rice bran, you can use canola, but try using cold pressed oils. The oils which are not considered good are the refined oils which have chemically been refined. Now the cold pressed oils are okay. Otherwise, keep changing the oils. So for 1 or 2 months, you can use groundnut, then you can use canola, then you can the cold pressed canola, the rice bran. These days, even blends are available, which are okay. The most important thing is not to stick to one oil and not overdo it. All oils will have the same amount of calories. 1 teaspoon will have 45 kilocalories, whether it is desi ghee, whether it is olive, whether it is canola, rice bran. Calories don't change. So हम olive oil में पूरी तल रहे हैं तो फिर मतलब ये नहीं है कि हम healthy हो गए हैं. वो नुकसान fat उतना ही करेगा. So I've had a patient जिसको मैंने बोला कि please रोटी पे घी लगा के मत खाइए. So he started putting yellow butter. Then I told him butter मत लगाइए. तो क्योंकि वो पंजाब साइड के थे तो वहां पे उसको व्हाइट बटर को कुछ और बोलते हैं तो उन्होंने वो व्हाइट बटर लगाना शुरू कर दिया कि उसमें तो फैट कम होता है. वो मना किया तो उन्होंने ऑलिव ऑयल लगाना शुरू कर दिया. सो आई वांट टू से प्लीज डू नॉट डू दिस. Keep your fat intake as minimum as possible because we also take hidden fats in namkeens, in biscuits, right? So these are sources of hidden fats also. So we have to be very mindful when we are having fats in our diet. I want to say that please have more of healthy fats like sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, nuts, avocados. These are healthy fats. Please try and have those more.
Let's switch over to supplements. There is a question from Sonia that for women after workout, is it advisable to take protein powder, especially when muscle mass is low? So it's a specific question. And then what is your view on supplements?
What you eat will not immediately go convert into muscle. Okay. A protein supplement will not immediately go convert into muscle. Your body can only assimilate some amount of protein at a given point in time. Rest will be converted into fat. So if you can eat well and your digestive, you don't have digestive issues, then please do not take commercial supplements. Okay. If you are a person who is not being able to eat well and are working out like 2-3 hours and you're doing muscle training and actual muscle training, Then maybe sit with your dietitian and make her understand what your workout schedule is. Then maybe you can take a workout supplement, but not the commercial ones जो आपको ये market में बड़े-बड़े डब्बे मिलते हैं for. We really don't know what is the medical behind that. You will get medical supplements, take that. Wherein we know that, okay, one serving is providing 15 grams of carbohydrate and that, proteins, that is enough for one serve. Or 40 grams of protein, 50 grams of protein, or 30 grams, it's not immediately absorbed. No, most of it is either thrown out of your body or converted into fat.
There's another view from coming from Anita ma'am. She's saying it is said heavy breakfast, then have a moderate lunch and a light dinner is the right way to remain healthy. So what
I'm so
is
sorry,
your view?
I didn't get you.
So see, it is generally said that have a very heavy breakfast. They say eat like a king in the breakfast, then have a moderate lunch and light dinner. So what is your view and recommendation on the
Yes,
on
exactly.
the
This
sizes
is
and the
called the weight loss pyramid, wherein the weight loss pyramid goes like this. It's an inverse pyramid. But eat like a king doesn't mean eat heavy breakfast. It doesn't mean have aloo parathas for breakfast. It means take a nutritionally dense breakfast, a nutritionally balanced breakfast. Okay, so it means have good protein in breakfast, have calcium in breakfast, have a fruit in the breakfast. Okay, so something like overnight soaked oats with 2 boiled eggs is a good breakfast with some nuts and some seeds. Okay, but we think puri aloo with maybe some juice is king breakfast. No, that's not the definition of a king breakfast. Okay, so yes, a good breakfast which is nutritionally complete. Okay, and then a little less lunch and minimal dinner. And minimal dinner doesn't mean have only soup. Minimal dinner means a dinner which is less quantity than the breakfast and you can easily digest it.
There's one question on evening, say snack or fruit juice or vegetable soup. Which one is better for the evening? For evening. So if anyone wants to have a evening fruit juice or a vegetable soup, the question is which one is good and what should be the.
So no juices at all. Whether it is a fresh juice, whether it is a canned juice, no juice at all, because you're removing the good part of it. You're removing the fiber. Okay, then it is, pure fructose and is definitely going to cause a spike. Vegetable soup, excellent idea unless you're having the packaged soup. No packaged food, please. So if you're making the vegetable soup at home with lots of vegetables in it, excellent idea. Okay. If you're having the fruit, very good. Add more protein to it. So a combination of a fruit and a protein is excellent. So normally we would advise to our patients have fruit chart with nuts or with sprouts. So it blunts the spike also that you might get with the fruit. So so all my patients with diabetes enjoyed their mango, like a mango curd with nuts as a dessert post their dinner after 2 hours of dinner. And they even enjoyed sweet potato chaat in their evening with Brussels sprouts. So we normally make these combinations to make sure that all people with the diabetes and with weight are enjoying all kinds of food without compromising on their quality of life.
Shubda, there's another interesting question on way of cooking. We were talking earlier about the oil, but now I think the question is on overall way of cooking and especially on pressure cooker. So we use a lot of cooking in the pressure cooker. So the question is whether it's the right way of cooking or it spoils the nutrients of food in the pressure cooker. Should we cook on using open utensils, or what is the best way in your opinion to make the right healthy meals?
Pressure cooking is no way a bad way of cooking. Anything which you have to cook for a very long period is going to destroy more nutrients. Always remember that. Lesser the time of cooking, more nutrients. Okay. Vitamin C is the nutrient which is destroyed in cooking the maximum. All the water soluble vitamins are destroyed in cooking. Protein actually doesn't change. Carbohydrate changes in cooking. Anything like if you're cooking a carrot, then raw carrot will increase your sugars less, wherein a cooked carrot will increase your sugars more. because we break the complex carb. So if you're cooking a vegetable, obviously you have to cook it because you can't eat it raw. And sometimes the bioavailability of a nutrient increases when you are cooking the food. So pressure cooking is absolutely okay. Long cooking and deep frying is bad. Rest, I think pressure cooking is excellent. We don't have to worry about pressure cooking anything. I think it requires minimal oil also. So I am a person who's pro pressure cooking with less time and quick food and low oil requirement.
There are many questions coming over, but I quickly take a minute to request everyone to switch on their cameras, because we'll have a group photo also at the end, and it's more interactive if all the cameras are on during the. There are a couple of questions specifically on some medicines and some diseases, which I am taking up next. There is a question from Ashok Dalal on what are the side effects of metformin and how many years the side effect will impact, and which organs can it impact?
Is the first line of treatment as far as drugs are concerned for type 2 diabetes. Metformin is a drug which works on insulin resistance, which means it makes your body's insulin work better, right? It is even given to people who are prone to diabetes or have pre-diabetes or are the initial stage of type 2 diabetes and have insulin resistance. So like I said, the kind of diabetes who have little weight, extra weight, and it is actually obtained from a bark of a tree. So less side effects, more good effects, and can continue for a very long years without actually causing any side effects. The only side effect initially that a person with diabetes and having metformin can have is a little GI side effects like loose motions, gas, acidity. That is why it is started with a small dose post dinner, like metformin SR karke post dinner start ki jati hai, and then slowly it is increased to post breakfast also, and it can go up to 2 grams a day. So if you are having side effects of metformin, which is loose motions and acidity and gas, then you should talk to your doctor, because that is something that he will look into. So it should not continue more than 2-3 days, and you should adjust to it. If it is continuing and you are continuously having loose motions or something, then the medicine should be changed. Some population in India is not tolerant to metformin because of the GI side effects.
I think, Salil, because of time, we have overshot, so we started a little late also. I think we can take last 2 questions. And then because I understand Shubda has a work to do in the hospital. So any last 2 questions which you feel are very important. And before we end, Shubda, I don't know if it is possible or not, but I think it is very good thing we got today. But in case we can get a small write-up, I'll speak to that on, and I can share this write-up with everybody. Generic write-up about eating and being healthy. That will help everybody.
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Harish, bataiye.
Yes, thank you for giving this nice presentation and deep knowledge to all of us. That's highly valuable for all families. My question is for fatty liver. What kind of foods we should avoid and what kind of food we should take?
Fatty liver.
For fatty liver.
Yeah. So for fatty liver, most important is, as you know, it's a fatty liver. So common sense fact to bilkul kam karna padega diet se, है ना? अच्छा, उसको और कम करने के लिए we will have to increase fiber in your diet. Third thing, simple carbohydrates बिल्कुल हटाने पड़ेंगे, which means मैदा बिल्कुल हटाना पड़ेगा, juices हटाने पड़ेंगे, कोई भी ऐसी चीज जिसमें आप ट्रांस फैट्स हटाने पड़ेंगे, यानी कि एक ही तेल में बार बार अगर आप कोई चीज तल रहे हैं, तो जितना हमारा समोसा, पकौड़ा, कचौड़ी, चिप्स, बिस्किट्स, क्योंकि वो बेक्ड, उसमें ट्रांस फैट्स होते हैं, ये सब हटाना पड़ेगा. सो अगर आप घर का खाना which is made with less oil and you are having enough fiber, which means जैसे मैंने आपको प्लेट दिखाई थी जिसमें खूब सारी सब्जियां थी, वैसे अगर आप 2 या 3 महीने तक कंटिन्यू खाएंगे और एनिमल फैट कम कर देंगे, यानी कि डेयरी प्रोडक्ट्स जिसमें से फैट है वो कम कर देंगे, ऑटोमेटिकली काफी हद तक वो रिमिशन में चला जाएगा. कुछ ड्रग्स भी ले रहे हैं आप फैटी लिवर के लिए?
नो, नेवर.
वो रिमिशन में चला जाएगा.
और
और
शायद थोड़ा
अल्कोहल बिल्कुल बंद करनी पड़ेगी.
alcohol.
Here again, second question in within this question. Can we, how many times and quantity can we take a beer in a week?
Not with fatty liver.
Not with
Zero.
fatty liver. अच्छा, जिनका नहीं है उनको बता दीजिए.
See, best is to take dry white wine, okay, or a red wine. As I said, one drink a day is okay. But again, as I'm hesitating because I'm not a person who would promote alcohol, because everybody's capacity to deal with alcohol is different. I have seen people who have had 2 drinks every day and are hale and hearty for a number of years. And I've seen people who have had 2-3 drinks occasionally and ended up with liver problems and kidney issues.
And I think the key points which we got today is it is not about only sugar. It is about overall diet. It is about how we eat, what time we eat, what we do with our body. And I think that is my takeaway from this. Although we'll take some summary, and Salil is very good in making summaries and sharing. I'm sure this recording you will see and give us some summary approved by Shubda to share with all of us. Salil, is there any burning question which is left, or?
No, I think let's keep it till here. Maybe one last question to ask Shubda, which I think links to alcohol and other people also, is what are the, say, pre-diabetic signs or early, say, catching of if there is something needs to be checked up or not, because this isn't coming in many questions.
So actually diabetes, pre-diabetes के कोई signs नहीं होते. And that is why I have been, telling you that please get checked. So pre-diabetes is a state wherein you are not normal, but you are still not there that you have diabetes. So your fasting, if you check it, it will be, fasting sugars will be between 100 to 125. If it is 126, you have diabetes. Okay. So any empty stomach reading, fasting reading, if it is between 100 to 125, you have pre-diabetes. If post-meal, your reading is between 140 to 200, it is pre-diabetes. If your 3 months average is between 5.7 to 6.5, it's pre-diabetes, which means you don't have diabetes, but you're right there. So this is the time when you have to work out maximum, because you can actually reverse everything. So normally pre-diabetes mein kya hota hai? We get relaxed. Okay, no, I'm not diabetes, we are borderline. कोई दवाई लेने की जरूरत नहीं, सिर्फ डाइट करना. But that is the time you have to really work hard. So this is the right time to lose weight, exercise, and become healthy, because we will reverse diabetes. We will prevent ourselves from becoming diabetic.
And I can share my case. When I went to Shubda, my readings were 6.4 in H1BC, and I was almost hitting to get to medicine. And Shubda told me, no, we can reverse it, and by just controlling, exercising, losing weight. And now when I do my H1BC every 3 months, it is still not gone below 5.7, but it is at 5.8, 6, 5.8, 5.9 kind of stuff. So I still have to fight those 2 points, but I think that's a live example what Shubda said, that it can be reversed from there. Yes, believe me, it can be. So,
and if we have diabetes, then we should keep it under, the HbA1c value should be kept under 7. Okay, 7%. That is called good control, right? And most of us will have no signs and symptoms of diabetes. That is why post 30 every year, if you have no family history, get yourself checked. If you have a family history, every 6 months. If you are not physically active, obese, and have a family history, every 3 months. Because it is very important. If you catch it early, even if you have diabetes, you can go into remission.
Thanks, Shubda. I think
Salil, I think what we can do, I think Ashok and Kapil and Chandesh, I think they have raised their hands since long. I know it will take another 5 minutes of Shubda, but
that's okay. That's okay. I want all of your doubts to be cleared. It's okay,
okay,
Salil.
Great. Thanks, Shubda. So Ashok sir, you were raising your hand.
I just wanted to ask, I put that question. I'm not sure why you guys are not putting that to Shubda. I just wanted to ask, are there any Ayurvedic medicine which can replace allopathy for
No,
the
sir.
start?
No.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we are not against Ayurvedic medications. They have their own role, and I'm sure they're effective. but we do not remove allopathy and use Ayurveda. Okay.
Okay.
So maybe while you're using Ayurveda, you may, and if it is affecting you and positively affecting you, then we can reduce with your doctor's permission, but we will not completely remove allopathy and then just go on to Ayurveda.
Yeah, I agree with you. But problem with the doctors is they don't recognize Ayurvedic as a science itself.
No, we do. What are you saying? I mean, Medanta, we have a whole Ayurvedic center. When I was in Medanta, we had a whole Ayurvedic center there. The whole Ayurveda garden there.
Even in government hospitals, we have got Ayush and other things now.
I have
Yeah.
an Ayurvedic in our CMEs, like in the diabetes educators CME, we had a full lecture on how to manage diabetes with Ayurveda.
So I can contact you. I can contact you.
What
virtually
we
because
don't
I
recognize
don't-
are the quacks. What we don't recognize are the quacks in the name of Ayurveda.
Yeah, so I can contact you virtually. I normally don't come to India actually.
No worry. What we'll do, we'll share the email ID and Shuddha's manager's number so that you can seek appointment and then you can have conversation. So I'll share Shuddha's manager's number as well as the email ID to write. Kapil, your question, the last question. Kapil and Chandesh, quickly. Yeah, Kapil.
Yeah, sir. My question is partially answered because I am based at Vadodara now. So just want to know how to get connected because I find a lot of things valuable for me into the discussion. So just was looking for information how to get connected.
We will share that, no worries. And Chandesh, is the same question or something else?
No, my question is about gluten in wheat. In fact, if Shuddha could little bit put some light on that.
So what is exactly your question? Is gluten harmful or should we avoid gluten, or what exactly is the question about gluten, sir?
See, I have to understand because lot of negative literature or discussion is there about the gluten. Even the books are also written on the same topic only. So I am not very clear about it. So
Actually, sir, gluten is a protein which is found in wheat, barley, and rye. Okay.
Okay.
That rye is not the rye that we use as a spice. This rye is a cereal. Okay, which I think is found more towards the south. So wheat, barley, and rye have a protein called gluten. Now, few of us get allergic to this gluten as a protein because our body loses the capacity to assimilate, and it affects our gut, the intestines. And then the absorption of other nutrients is not possible. So people who have gluten allergy will have specific symptoms. Whenever they eat gluten, they will have loose motions, bloating, and they will suddenly start losing weight. And they will have particular, clear symptoms of gluten allergy. And it will come out in the blood checks also, in the biopsy also. Okay, until that is clear, there are certain IgA, TTG tests which are done to understand whether a person has gluten allergy or not. These are clear-cut celiac disease patients, and people who have gluten allergy, they have said that, okay, they have celiac disease and for a lifetime, they have to avoid gluten. Now that only does not mean that they have to avoid roti. Anything which has gluten, like all the drinks which have malt, anything where, to the extent even hing or the masala mixes that come, like dal makhni mix or anything like that, or many spices which have even a small component of wheat have to be avoided. Biscuits, anything, dalia vagera, everything has to be avoided. And that doesn't mean that they will lose weight if they have avoided gluten. On the contrary, they start gaining weight who have celiac disease once they leave gluten, because then their body starts absorbing nutrients, which it was not. Anybody can develop a gluten allergy in their life. Having said that, these days it has become a fad that, okay, I'm on a gluten-free diet for weight loss, because in the West it became a fad. Gluten is not a criminal here. Now, why people lose weight on a gluten-free diet here is because when they leave gluten, they are leaving wheat. They leave rotis, they leave biscuits, they leave breads, okay? They leave pizzas, they leave noodles, and they leave eating out. And they shift from wheat to millets. So they're not losing weight because they have left gluten. They are losing weight because they have shifted their main cereal from high carb to a high fiber, which is millets.
Okay.
Some people will also not lose weight going on a gluten-free diet because they start eating corn, rice, and they will not lose weight. All gluten-free products are not going to be the products for losing weight. Some people don't have gluten allergy, but they are sensitive to gluten. You will not find them in their reports to have gluten allergy, but they'll have some sensitivity to gluten. They might have a little stomach ache or digestion issues after having gluten. So unko bhi we will restrict a little bit of gluten. But to go on a gluten-free diet just to be in the fashion or to lose weight is not recommended.
Thanks,
Am I
Shubha.
clear?
I think it's been a wonderful session with so many takeaways. So on behalf of YMCA Mob, we extend our sincere thanks to you for sparing your time and sharing your insights. There are so many takeaways, it will run into pages, but what I can assure you from my side on behalf of others is the best thing I liked is one thing which I will change today. And I think encourage everyone present here to change that one thing starting today onwards. And then we are moving forward to a healthy lifestyle. So once again, I think special thanks to you, and over to Asim sir for the closing remarks.
So that's all, Shubda. Thank you very much, and I think we enjoyed, we learned. I picked new things actually. I was in between, but I said, okay, let me at least be on your voice, and I picked few things. Thank you very much. I think we all have gained something to do with us. Maybe changing habit of eating, moving to home cooked food, or those myths which were there. I could find out that there are two things which were I was thinking they're right, and you just broke that myth today for me also. So thank you very much, and thank you very much to the mob community for participating into this and asking the relevant questions, getting answers for everybody. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you for being with me.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you, everyone.